Most gardens don't fail because the soil is lifeless. They fail because the soil can't breathe. I see this constantly. Beds covered with thick airtight mulch layers that were added with good intentions and slowly strangled everything underneath. Growth slows, roots stay shallow, water starts pooling instead of soaking in, and gardeners respond by adding more compost or fertilizer, which only masks the problem. The soil wasn't dead. It was suffocating. The problem starts when mulch is treated like a blanket instead of a breathing layer. Mulch is one of the most misunderstood tools in gardening. Somewhere along the way, more mulch is better became accepted wisdom. Deep, uniform layers of wood chips, bark, or shredded material get packed down season after season. What happens underneath is not protection, it's oxygen deprivation. When soil organisms that rely on air are deprived, they slow down or, well, die off altogether. Fungal networks, too, just collapse. And roots stop exploring and end up sitting right at the surface, where moisture and nutrients can swing wildly. I've pulled back mulch in beds that hadn't been disturbed in, 2 years, and found grey, sour-smelling soil with almost no visible biology. Earthworms completely gone. The structure had just collapsed. That didn't happen because mulch was used, you see. It happened because mulch was misused. Healthy soil needs oxygen just as much as it needs organic matter. Soil life, well, it really does run on oxygen. So bacteria, fungi, protozoa, nematodes and roots all really need air moving through those pore spaces, But when mulch is laid too thick or gets compacted into a solid mat, those pore spaces just close right up. Water ends up filling them, oxygen leaves, and then, anaerobic organisms start to take over. That's when you start seeing things like nutrient lockups, root rot, and oddly enough, that strange situation where plants look hungry even though the soil tests rich. In raised beds, this kind of problem shows up faster, simply because there's less volume to buffer mistakes. In ground soil, it happens more slowly, but it tends to last longer. Either way, once oxygen exchange is restricted, the biology just shuts down. Folks often blame wood chips for problems in the garden, but really it's all about how they're used. Wood chips are not the enemy here. In fact, I use them constantly myself. The real trouble comes from full coverage and compression, not the chips themselves. Now, when wood chips are spread in a thick uniform layer and then walked on, rained on, and just topped up time after time without ever loosening them, they tend to knit together. What happens then is fungal dominance without any airflow, and that quickly turns into fungal stagnation. At that point, the chips stop acting like mulch and, start acting more like a lid. The difference between improving your soil and actually suffocating it really comes down to how loose that mulch layer stays. Chips should touch the soil, not seal it. They're meant to shade the earth, not smother it, so just keep things nice and airy. So what loose mulch actually looks like in practice is, a bit different from what you might expect. In my own gardens, mulch is never applied thicker than 2 inches at a time, unless, of course, it's extremely coarse. Wood chips are scattered, not dumped, and I always leave visible gaps where light and air can move through. In vegetable beds, I make sure to pull mulch slightly back from the crown of plants, especially tomatoes, peppers and squash. That small detail alone, honestly, prevents stem rot and improves early root expansion. In perennial beds, I refresh mulch lightly instead of stacking layers year after year. Now, how suffocated soil behaves differently after rain and irrigation is quite telling. One of the easiest ways to diagnose this problem is to watch how your soil handles water. Healthy, breathing soil absorbs water quickly and evenly, while suffocated soil sheds it, pools it, or stays soggy long after irrigation stops. If you see runoff in beds that should be improving every season, something is blocking gas exchange. I've corrected this in multiple gardens simply by raking mulch lightly, breaking up compacted layers and reducing thickness. Within weeks, infiltration improved without adding a single amendment. Why compost under mulch doesn't fix the problem. Many gardeners try to solve this by adding compost under the mulch. That can help temporarily, but it doesn't address the root issue if the mulch layer above is still sealing the surface. Compost feeds microbes, but microbes still need oxygen. Without it, compost turns into sludge instead of structure. When I add compost, it's always followed by a breathable mulch layer, not a compressed one. The goal is to create a transition zone, not a barrier. How this applies to containers and even hydroponic systems. In pots, surface crusting from fine mulch or cocoa fibre can reduce oxygen to roots dramatically. In hydroponics, oversaturated media with no air exchange leads to the same suffocation symptoms, even with perfect nutrient solutions. Roots don't care whether they're in soil or water. They care about oxygen. Ignore that, and nothing else matters. So, what actually works in the long run, rather than just constantly fixing symptoms? Well, the best-performing gardens I've managed all share one trait: air moves through the soil profile all year round. And honestly, that comes from loose mulch, living roots, minimal disturbance, and yes, a good measure of patience. It definitely does not come from piling material higher and just hoping the biology sorts itself out. If you're mulching to suppress weeds, shade the soil and feed the microbes, you'll want to do it lightly and often, rather than heavily and rarely. Let the soil breathe, let organisms move, let roots decide where to grow. Funny thing is, correcting this often feels like you're doing less, but it actually works so much better. You know, this is one of those fixes that feels wrong at first, because it involves removing or loosening something you were told to add. But once you see stronger growth, deeper roots, and, well, fewer disease issues, it just clicks. Soil health isn't about maximum coverage. It's about balanced conditions. I've watched gardens rebound in a single season once suffocation was removed, not because something new was added, but because something blocking life was taken away. If your soil keeps failing despite good inputs, check whether it can breathe. Before you buy another bag of fertilizer or add another inch of compost, pull back your mulch and look underneath. Smell it. Feel it. If it's sour, compacted or lifeless, the problem isn't feeding. It's airflow. If this kind of practical soil understanding helps you grow better food with fewer inputs, subscribe to Gentle Herb Living and share this video with a gardener who keeps adding more but never sees improvement. Better harvests start when we stop suffocating the systems that grow them.